In this tutorial, I'd like to talk a little bit on the concept of HUD, also the stereo layer. It's a pretty important concept if you want to do, for example, interface to display hub information. This is very popular in a screen-based game. You can have, the parameters like house numbers, how many ammunitions you left right here. In VR, is not necessarily be a good idea because our peripheral vision is not able to read this message in the corner very carefully. But it could be an interesting way to display something not important. For example, you see through a drone, right? You see some, high-tech interface UI. So here I want to show you really quick how to do this type of interface. There are multiple ways you can do it. The easier way to create this kind of interface is create just a two-dimension plan, which is a shape, a rectangular shape. Then you apply a material to it. So here you can see I just create this basic shader. It's called stereo layer material, and this material has a PNG file with alpha channel. So that is a quick way you can apply this into the shader. I use a user interface, so it doesn't really generate the shadows or lighting. Also make sure when you create this plan, right, you do want to turn off the let me shadow. You can just type shadow. Make sure it doesn't generate any shadows from this interface. So this will be a quick way. And also, I think typically you don't want to generate any collision from it, right? So this one is purely just for the UI. So I will say no collision. Okay. All right. So this is the kind of the quick setup. You can create this UI interface with a plan. The second option is using the stereo layer. This is actually a special layer. You can add it in. You can just add stereo layer. This is kind of like a post process. If you do that, you don't really see the layer when you run this in the Unreal Editor. However, if you run this in a headset, it will kick in as a post process. And here in the stereo layer, you can just adding a texture to it. That should be fine. You can define the ratios, 200 by 100. Make sure you set this at face locked. You do a quad layer, so this is kicking as a rectangular shape. If I double click the texture, you see the texture is just a PNG file. Make sure the compression is set as a UI, user interface 2D, right? So this will not do the compression, and you will have this stereo layer be rendered when you have this layer in the palm. I do attach this layer to the follow camera, but this one will be actually locked to your face. So that's a face locked option. I did a very similar approach to the drone. So the drone, the third person drone, you can see stereo layers right here. I add exactly the same 2D texture and also using the UI as compression. Okay, so I will do a demo how this looks like in VR. Run this, save selected. Right, so this will compile into a standalone game. In order to make it looks close to what you really experience in VR, I also turned on the side quest stream. So this will basically broadcast the views directly into side quest. Okay, so I will wear that. We can take a look. Right, it's loading. Right. So as soon as I see this in the side quest, you can see there's actually two layers all being rendered. One is a stereo layer, another is a plan. The plan is a purple circle. So they all looks pretty cool, right? and if I look around, they will follow my face. Okay, that's the reason it's called face lock, and also because the plane is attached as a children of the camera, so it's basically a face lock, right? So I have this, and if I using the tab key, I can switch from my third-person camera to the drone, right? Oh, I have to switch to make sure I activate the play view. Okay, so this is a play view. So I'm using the tab key, right? So basically, I switched to the drone, and I have to switch back to the Quest in order to for you to take a look. All right. So you can see this is the interface for the drone, and you definitely see the stereo layer. The transparency of PNC looks much better than the plan because the alpha channel, I think, in the stereo layer is rendered as a post effects, so it looks much nicer. Okay, and now if I'm using the tab key, well, I have to switch back. I can go back to sort of person view, but this is basically how this looks like in stereo. I can definitely apply this to my VR Pong as well. In fact, I think the third person view and the drone might not be the ideal one I want to package at the end. So the VR Pong is. So if you want to add in the stereo layer, you can add stereo layer, and just make sure it's the children of the camera, and you want to give a little bit distance. So let's give 100. So the UI, the stereo layer is a little bit further away from the camera. Then you want to define the texture. So in this case, we already have the texture name is a stereo layer. That's a texture name, and also make sure is I think I will give 150. So the proportion is kind of 4:3, 150 by 100, and I want to give the face locked layer shape. I think I can go with quad. Okay. So compile, let's take a look how this looks like in VR mode. So I will go to just make sure save all, and then yeah, do this build using the standalone. To make it easier to be seen, I have to run the Quest. Right. In the Quest stream, you should be able to see the stereo layer be rendered. Okay. And also, let's just make sure this is this one. Can I do a? I want to try to do a full screen. Maximize. Anyhow, I will just simply. Oh, it is. Okay. So let me go to the Quest. All right, it's loading. Yeah, I'm using the Quest 1. That's the reason it's a little bit slow. Okay, but cool. We have this stereo view showed up. Let's do a full screen. Right, that looks really nice. And also, I should be able to use my controller. You can see my controller right here, and I can use my controller to look around. Right, and I believe I can still click the triggers. Start. I should be able to go to another level, right? So you see the stereo layer will go with me. That's really nice. And I believe this pop-up menu is still working. That's really nice because everything's rendered as a post process. Then if I want to go back to the start lobby layer, I can press restart. I go back to the lobby. Okay. Unfortunately, my right hand controller is out of power, so I'm not able to pick up objects or navigate. But you got the idea. This is how this stereo layer looks like when you post render this. So this actually looks pretty cool. I have my controllers, have my pop-up menus, have my HUD is out there. If you do want to make this one a little bit larger or be closer to the peripheral uh, region, you just need to adjust the distance. I think right now it's 100. If you want to make it like 50, or you can make other adjustment. Actually, it's pretty easy. We can do a quick test. So I will exit. It's probably gonna give me a warning again. Yep, that's okay. So if I do want to push this a little bit closer to my view, to my peripheral view, I can just simply change the distance, right? So if I do, I don't know, 50, so this is being much closer. And then if you save, compile, and then I will run this again, this will be really close to my face. Okay, so let's take a look. But also, if you don't want to using a stereo layer, you can definitely using a plan, right? Just make sure it's perpendicular, is attached as a children of your camera. You can get the similar effects. But as I mentioned before, the PNG transparency doesn't look as good as the stereo layer. And also, the stereo layer, I believe, is cheaper because it's being handled as a post process. All right, so I have this. Then make sure I'm switching to the Quest. Okay. What happened? I'm not sure. That seems like there's something wrong. It's being rendered, but I lost the transparency. That is interesting. That is very interesting. So let me see what happened. Off. That is strange. So why is became so dark? Maybe it's too close. I don't know. Let's do 85. Right. I think the original value was 100. Yeah, just want to make sure everything is still the same. Okay. So after the compiling, then I'm going to switch to the Quest. Right. All right, it's loading. Okay, so now it's working. It's much larger, right? Close to the peripheral. So I'm not sure. Maybe it's the distance values. It cannot be too close to your face. Yeah, seems like we can definitely reduce that value a little bit more. But you got the idea. This is how you render this face attached HUD UI.